Hello, everybody. It's great to be here one more time today. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm the CEO, president, and founder of GSD Get You Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. I'm a 17-time serial entrepreneur with several unicorns under the belt. I was on the original management team of Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion. Also, Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company that I co-founded with Dr. David Yang. We believe at GSD that intellectual capacity is evenly spread, but opportunities are not. Today on Simplenight Presents, I have an incredible guest, a return incredible guest, Eric Pelletier. Eric's been a executive. He's been an investor. He's been a professor. He worked for Bain, but he's got all-around knowledge about how we can go down through and especially look at global travel trends that are shaping the next decade. Hi, Eric. How are you today?
Hi, Gary. Pleasure to be here.
So Eric, we talk about hyper personalization and travel, but how is it used in the context? And I think it's things like Airbnb experiences now, but how is that used in what context and what does that mean for each one of us? What is hyper personalization?
To me, hyper-personalization is making sure that the product, the service you get is as closely related to what you want and need. So that's what it is. The way it manifests itself in the travel hospitality industry is that if you look, there are some series of almost conflicting things happening. One, first of all, hospitality travel is back to pre-COVID level and still growing. So that's the good thing. The second thing is you see more and more people focused on experience. They want a great experience.
Why is that, Eric? Why do they want a great experience?
Because if you think about, when you're a tourist or when you mix, a business trip to, leisure, what matters is what you feel. This is really it's the being, not the having, and this is why experience is so important. And the issue behind that is that it's difficult to organize experience. So people are trying in many different ways. To me, there are a couple of things that are interesting. If you look at travel agents, now the surviving ones, some of them are thriving, and they position themselves as travel advisors. So in essence, they will do two things for you. All the complexity of booking and all these things, they will manage for you. And the second thing, for the better ones, they will come back with suggestions about the experience, things you could do within the context of your parameters. If you look at hospitality, hotels are beginning to understand something that the airlines understood about 30 years ago, is that you need to unbundle. And unbundling means what? An airline, it's, you slice the ticket you sell by many dimensions, and customers really get what they paid for. It's beginning to happen in hotels. So they really want to customize your experience. That's the unbundling. So, what kind of pillows do you prefer? What time do you want to check out? All these things. But then you realize to be able to do that, you need tons of data. And this is where hyper-personalization comes in play.
You're right. For everything from, hyper-personalized to destinations, accommodations, activities, and even dietary restrictions. We haven't had that before. We haven't really had those individual experiences. And if we look at travel, so what role do you think concierge services play in future travel?
First of all, I think I probably say that all the time, but initially travel agents like Cook, people who invented that, they were concierge for you. They would organize your trip from London.
I mean, that's how it used to be, right? I remember you used to go into the travel service, Liberty Travel, and they would sit down and give you specialized service. Now, it took forever, right?
Yeah.
It was like an ordeal of a couple of weeks because you had to almost like a consulting, go down and sit down and put the deal together. and it was a pain because you had so many different moving parts, and if something was screwed up and you had to go get your tickets. But all that changed, right? We went away from that kind of hand holding model where you didn't really get close to the airlines, right? Unless you were in a big city like Paris, you would walk into the Delta and talk to them. But we went away from it, and now we're coming back to it, right? Because people are frustrated with the service and their and but so how does it work? So what do you think? Is it how
Yeah,
to become more personalized? And then how do digital assistants and AI powered concierge provide these really seamless experiences?
the service level is essential because uh, even though you got booking.com, Expedia, all these things that are supposed to make your life simpler, actually, as usual, it does work at the beginning, and now it's become too complex because, as you mentioned, there are so many moving parts when you organize a holiday that so concierge are essential, and they're really back in favor. And as a customer, to me, there is one thing that's really important, is that the experience is not limited to your actual trip. The experience should be the organizing process, which today is dreadfully painful, and then actually getting some feedback in place so someone knows more and more about your taste. And this is the whole spectrum of the experience. The concierge today, what you expect them today, whether they're digital or actual people, you want them to organize everything for you along what you really want, meaning that they are able to help you understand what you really want. Because we all know you can say, I want a cool experience, in Antarctica, fine. But having said that, I probably have preferences that I have not been able to express because I don't know enough. If I'm able to have this dialogue with someone who knows, they can take me through, okay, these are all the things. Now, at the same time, you don't want to spend hours doing this. And this is where digital agents come in play, because the more your agent knows about you, your digital agent, the more knows about you. Hyper
Yeah, no,
personalization.
that's imagine personalized wellness programs,
Yeah.
based on the health data that guests have, customized tours tailored to travel, historical, and also interests. So there's certain things you may not even know that that's it, but you say, oh, all of a sudden I want to see this, right? Real time itinerary adjustments based on time changes. So if you get late for one plane, it adjusts everything, including your checkout time, your hotel. This isn't just the future. This is now. I mean, we're starting to do that now. And unfortunately, most people don't realize we were in the Stone Ages with concierge services, right?
Yeah, I think you give a very good example with wellness. So wellness is now one of the hottest sector of hospitality. And now hotels, they used to have a spa and a gym and then a pool, and now they realize they need to have yoga classes and mindfulness classes and all these things. So they're building up their offering. But actually, the following step is actually an agent who understands you, who knows you, and knows that this is the type of program, health program, wellness program that you should have during your stay. And then it knows the places where to do it, and it organizes it for you, because you probably have had that experience every time you go to a spa and you haven't to a hotel with a spa and you haven't booked before. You very often it's booked, um, and you should have reserved 3 weeks ago, but you didn't know it. So the the digital agent actually puts you in a position where it becomes simple, and you can focus on the fun part of the experience, because the fun part is what's okay. I'm going to go to Rome. Well, I probably want to go to Pompeii. I want to visit the Pantheon. There's a couple of things I'm interested in, and that's my input. Then the system processes it for you and said, okay, if you like this, you will like this. Actually, we know this little trattoria there that you really should try. And then you engage in this dialogue. So you know, we know that unfortunately most of pleasure comes from anticipation, expectations.
Yeah, you're right about that, because you think about it, you think about a trip all year long, and then you take the trip, and all of a sudden, it's over, right? And then what do? You think of the next trip,
Yeah.
and it's interesting. But if you continuously sensed and made adjustments to your trip based on continuous sensing, imagine what that would be like, right? It just changes everything. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's always looking at what you like right now, or what could be interesting for you right now. That's amazing, actually.
Yeah, and this is why, to me, there is something that nobody's really working on today, and I think it will come, it will emerge. It's the post trip experience.
Yeah.
Okay, with your travel agents way back, when they knew you, you would have that conversation. So, how was your trip to Rome? Did you like that place and this and that? When you go through booking.com, it doesn't really exist. You just rate the hotel 5 star or whatever, but that's it. That's all. So imagine a situation where actually you engage in a dialogue
Yeah, no,
with
that would be that. And the other thing I was thinking about, if you took the GPS coordinates of where you were on your trip, it could understand, what the average time that normal people would spend in a location. It would understand you must have liked it and exactly what you like in that location, right? And then all of
exactly.
a sudden it starts going down through. And the other thing is, imagine if they're like-minded people that like that same experiences, and it starts grouping you together, and you start having, either online or offline, start having discussions about those things and plan trips together, right?
No, no,
We haven't done that
exactly.
before.
Yeah. And this is why the post trip experience is so important. I think you mentioned GPS coordinates. That's great. You realize, oh, when I visit, I love architecture. GPS coordinates will say whenever there's an interesting building in the city, I tend to stop, watch, um, take pictures, bad pictures, take pictures. So the system can tell you that. Other things the system can do, go back to your Instagram or your Facebook and look at the pictures you post. So the system can really get to know you deeply whilst protecting your privacy. And as it learns, then you go into the hyper personalization loop.
You know, I mean, thinking about it, in Europe, I mean, with the Europeans, because of GDPR, would they, hyper personalization really relies heavily on data, you know, and so what about privacy and consent and cybersecurity? How do we go down through and adapt to like GDPR laws? Because I want those experiences that are personalized, but if you have GDPR, it's kind of like putting a roadblock in, because you can't do it. So how do we work with those kind of environments?
Yeah, I know there's a big debate now about whether Europe is tech unfriendly or over regulating. But actually, first of all, people like GDPR. Europeans like it.
Hmm.
So the second thing, it's not that, in essence, GDPR tells you two things as a company. One, you have to ask for consent, and two, you're limited in the commercial exploitation of the data you collect. But as a company, if you use the data for yourself, it's actually pretty open what you can do. So although it may seem daunting at the beginning, actually in real life, it's pretty straightforward.
We talked about how might the role of travel agencies evolve due to hyper personalization. We talked about it, right? They're transforming back into these, so you look at things like specialized digital first advisors. They use the technology to be able to dive deeper into those experiences. You just saw Airbnb, right? I
Yep.
just saw something about them doing it. They're going to look at technology partnerships. Imagine all the partnerships with hotels and experiences you're going to want to have, because it's kind of, honestly, it's bland. You go to a city and you come into a place like Paris, and if you don't have somebody like yourself that's there, you don't know exactly what to see, and you never have enough time, because by the time you figure it out, the trip's over. So the problem is, how do you act like a native in the city? And if you have these concierge services that can guide you, map it out, like tell you make a restaurant reservation at 12, you're there at 12, the average person stays for an hour and 15 minutes. It knows that. It sets up your next venue. It basically is like a tour guide, right? It becomes like a tour guide on steroids, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's where it's going to evolve soon.
And it does one thing that's very important. If you talk to hoteliers, they're extremely unhappy with booking.com and those things. They realize it brings a lot of traffic to them. That's true. But they also realize that the cut that they take is huge. And that actually they lose the most important thing when you're a company, which is access, direct access to your customers. So all the hotels and even restaurants are now trying to regain that direct access to customers. So for customers, this is where concierge become very important. Because concierge doesn't do the filtering; it helps you go there, get those slices of experience at a cost that's super acceptable to you and to the hotel, and because they don't have to take a cut on that.
You know, that's another thing. It's interesting because I've used some of those services like Priceline, and when I booked a ticket through there, I didn't get. I remember I haven't done it lately because I didn't like it. But they would actually not give you the frequent flyer points. You couldn't get your frequent flyer points if you booked it through the service. And maybe that's changed, but I didn't like that, so I stopped using them for booking flights because I wanted my points. I mean, I wouldn't get the points applied, and you'd be spending a lot. You spend nearly the same amount, but you wouldn't get the points.
Yeah, no, exactly, and they probably have a deal to keep the points to themselves, or
Could be. Yeah,
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised.
yeah, you don't know
Yeah, that's
how.
a good idea.
Yeah,
They use those, to reduce the cost of the travel, put more money in their pockets. You're right.
yeah.
So,
And
what do you think, Eric? What impact will virtual reality and augmented reality have on the hyper personalized travel, in your opinion?
to me, what's happening is we're squaring the circle in some ways. People want a fully integrated experience and a highly customized one. And typically, you see that in retail, you're either a big box or a specialized boutique. Very difficult to offer everything to everybody, except possibly that's what Amazon does. But in physical retail, big difference. So the digital agents focused on hyper personalization allowed to do both the super integration and then the hyper customization. And then if you feed that system with slices of experience, restaurants, safaris, yachting, whatever your thing is, then you have something truly unique because you reconcile the two most important trends that exist today. And on top of that, if you look at additional trends, one, you got all the emerging middle class in Asia, and so you got every year you got millions of new tourists coming up on the market. Then you got over tourism, so countries like in Europe, countries like France and Italy and Croatia now are beginning to have programs to modify the flow of tourists to make
Really?
sure.
So, what are
Yeah.
they doing? What you mean? They can't come in, or how do they modify the flow?
Okay, so in the case of Venice or Dubrovnik, they're trying to actually minimize they try to set a limit to the number of people who can enter the city because it's overcrowded. In France and Italy, what they've realized is that everybody wants to go and see Notre Dame and Versailles and Mont Saint Michel, and then there's literally hundreds, thousands of places that are equally interesting, but have not been promoted. So they're doing a very conscious effort to promote new destinations within the country and orientate the flow.
Hmm.
And that's very interesting because the part of the fun of traveling is is being able to go to places where nobody's been before. and being, at the vanguard of, of new places, new experiences.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is you can use AR and VR in anticipation of the travel, like you said. You could actually go down through and do a pass through of that. If you're going to the Louvre, you could actually walk through it and see what's interesting for you, so you could actually pinpoint what you want to physically see when you're there. In
Yep.
a hybrid kind of environment. I mean, that would be interesting because it would keep your interest up during until you would take the flight. I know when I go to breakfast in the mornings, many times there's a young lady there that's a college student, and all she's been talking about is her trip to Italy and it's going to happen in 91 days from now. It's now 91. I'm going to be taking my trip. And then she says, well, it's only 90 days. It'll be tomorrow, right? Every day she's telling me. She's so excited about that trip to Italy. And she's like doing all this research. But if you had all these tools, it would make it a more robust, more optimized and productive experience, because you would know what you would need to see before you get there. And you wouldn't say, oh, I missed that, right? And it could line it up for you. I love it. So um, what can businesses do to prepare for the shift towards hyper personalization and travel? And what do they need to invest in, Eric, in order to be able to do that? What's going to be important for businesses?
Okay, for hospitality, and from the hospitality standpoint, you want to use that trend to build as strong a connection as you can to your customers directly. So you need to set up your systems in the sense that you want to gather, you want to collect this information, and then you want to connect with peers, to actually being able to offer a full package. So the absolute essential thing is data collection. You want to get as much data as possible and use it to truly understand what your customers value. And you may have surprises, because people know things that you don't think they know, or people or things that you don't even know. And they may know that, if you go to that, yeah, I saw something, the Georges V in Paris, the Four Seasons. Um, their pastry is incredibly well renowned, and they have a croissant that is truly amazing. It's
Have you ever had it?
Yeah, and it's as satisfying to taste than to look at.
You sound like you're getting hungry thinking about it right now.
Uh, you just see that image and the smell, brilliant.
Well, it must be good for somebody from Paris to like it. It must be really, really good.
It is, but that's interesting, because this is it's part of the experience. And as you mentioned, if you don't have a friend that told you, oh, there's this one thing you really need to try out, then so as a business, the more data you have, the more you can start promoting the little things that actually build up to the experience.
So um, travelers like my daughter, right? She's in her late 20s. Really prioritize these unique, I want to call them social media worthy experiences, where you can take do your selfies and those kind of things. And at the same time, they're authentic. Those preferences have changed things because they're demanding these kind of unique, interesting experience that'll get a lot of attention on social media. They want those experiences that other people say, I know I put a picture of an alligator. I happened to be going out the other day. I was riding my bike and I got pretty close to a very large alligator. And I put the thing up, I zoomed in on it a little bit. I didn't want to get that close, right? I was about probably 35 feet away because this thing was huge.
Mm-hmm.
And I put it up and people went nuts. In fact, I think it's the most viewed picture that I've had on Facebook, because people are just enthralled in those kind of, and I was going to do a selfie and turn my back, but I was afraid if I did, I might get nailed.
No, I wouldn't do that. Yeah.
But, they like those kind of experiences. That's something unique. It stands out because they can get viewers, right? They can get subscribers. So it's going to change. That shift is going to happen. At the same time, if you look at the future of luxury travel in the era of hyper-personalization, what do you think is going to happen for luxury travel?
Luxury travel. One, there's a very interesting trend. First of all, it's it's the fastest growth part of the market is luxury travel. And you know, you realize that in 10 years hotel rooms, you know, the ADR went from 500 to $2,000. So some of it may be exaggerated, but there's real value. And you look at all the in the big cities, all the palaces that have been rehabbed because, you know, all the chains realized that you have to go up and up and up market. I don't know if you know that chain, Aman Resort, which is possibly the best chain in the world, most luxurious. And the way they're building their experience in connection with yachting, with houses, with the whole way they think about the experience, that this is where it should be going, and then all the businesses should follow that logic. The interesting thing, the guy who started that actually did it because he likes to party and he liked to host friends.
Hmm.
And then he realized, okay, I'm a great host. Actually, I'm going to do my little boutique hotel, and it just went incredibly successful. And now they got the best spots in the world. I mean, truly amazing locations. So the trans luxury travel, there's a lot of money coming in. There's a lot more money. I mean, this is obviously a place where you want to invest. There are many locations that are completely underdeveloped. You got all these, you know, I don't know how many millionaires are created every day in China, but you know,
A
you got
lot.
all these people. Yeah, a lot. It's probably the precise number, right? Yeah, so you got all the economics, and the trends are very positive with that. But to exploit that, this is where hyper personalization integration matters. This is really the next thing.
So, what do you think of the major challenges that need to be addressed for hyper personalized travel and concierge service in order to be adapted globally?
It's like a double funnel in some ways. On the one hand, you want to collect as many information as possible on your customers to do the hyper personalization thing, and then on the supply side, you want to be able to give access to lots of, you know, different slices of experience. And then if you're in the middle of that double funnel, this is where you are, you know, a sweet spot. But it means two very different expertise. One expertise is truly pure internet, AI, you know, all these data analysis, big data, all these things. And then the other one is the true expertise of travel agent, having the networks in place to know that, yeah, in Rome there's this trattoria, and it's they got the white beans that, you know, that are so typical. So it's the ability to connect all these points and create something out of that.
Now, it's interesting, and we look at it. So, your closing thoughts, Eric, and the best way for people to get a hold of you.
uh, yeah, I'm sorry for the noise. They're preparing the celebration for D-Day.
Yeah,
So
let's see.
okay, I live just near the military. The To me, well, first, to get hold of me, my email is posted under my, you know, my face. Um, Big Trans is it's about data, and use data to really understand what you want to do with your customers, understand the customer journey, which actually starts even before they go out. I mean, to me, the pre-experience is very important, and nobody's focused on that. But um, it's funny, you mentioned your daughter traveling, and this girl also going to Italy. You remember there was a time when people read books; they would all have their guides, their
Yeah,
travel
Foder's
guide.
guide. I remember the Foder's guide, and
Yeah,
you know,
Fowler and Bodecker way back in
yeah.
Michelin, France. Uh, And actually, the good guides, you could read them.
Yeah.
You could
No,
actually read them.
it was an experience when you would read them. It would make you understand and what kind of restaurants you would go to. You
Yeah.
know, it wouldn't tell you. Well, they would talk about where the you had to make reservations way in advance, but it was pretty interesting. No, I agree.
And so to me, when you build a system that, Simplenight, actually, if you're able to provide that experience, and then the post experience to refine it for the next loop, um, it's it's a very attractive business because all the trends are positive.
No,
Um,
I agree. And so on the Simple Night side, my prediction is that through tools like Simple Night, travel is going to be entirely predictive and proactive, where these systems are anticipating the customer's needs, their desires, their wants, express perfect purposes to be able to do things um, in an entirely different way. And so, what we have to do on our side is we've got to go down through and understand that these unexpressed preferences will be able to deliver incredibly tailored, hyper personalized experiences. And people are going to not know why, but they're going to love it. And it's going to happen more and more. And what it's going to do is take care of all that data that's around us.
very simple example. So, if one day in your email you get a message that actually we have something very interesting with the Singapore F1 Grand Prix. It's at night. It's beautiful. It's fun, uh, because the system understood from what you like and from your social media that actually you're a fan. This is brilliant. It's unprompted. You can start doing something because if you look at the kind of promotion we all get in our email, it's very rough. I mean, it's
No, I agree. And Eric, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us one more
yeah.
time today. And I want to thank all my audience for joining one more time. Simple Nights Presents. My name is Gary Fowler, and I'm your host. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. And we'll be back to you again soon with another exciting edition. Have a great weekend, Eric, and to all of you out there, have an incredible weekend and stay happy. See you later.